y'all, it's Chimdi. I'm here to report that my free ride is over. My sister, who I have been living with for over a year, has asked me to start paying rent. Can you believe that? Not only that, but she's not renewing her lease, which means that y'all, I ain't living here no more, okay? Say goodbye to this lovely background because next few months it's gonna change. Now you may be asking, okay, Chimdi, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna get a part-time job, go to another country where it's more affordable? Like, what is your plan? I've asked myself these same questions and I'm gonna do what I have truly always done as of late, which is to operate on vibes. Now, I know you may be like, how does that work, girl?
Walk us through it.
It sounds insane. It sounds, probably for a lot of people, very scary. A couple of years ago, would totally understand, and I would not be cackling as I am now. And that's because the number one question that guided my life was always, how do I keep myself safe? And I don't think I'm the only one who is driven by that kind of directive, where it's not so much about what will make me happy, what will help me live in my purpose. It's more like, listen, I'm trying to live. I'm trying to survive. And I always thought that having a 9-to-5 was safer than a creative life, which is why I worked in a 9-to-5 for, 8+ years. That's why I got those degrees. And even when I quit that job and I started working full-time in YouTube, I still created a coaching business for myself because I was like, we're gonna create our own pseudo 9-to-5 so we can still have some level of that safety. And I told myself, if anything ever happens, I can always go back to that safe 9-to-5 option. But what I'm realizing now is that it's not that a 9-to-5 is safer than YouTube or that YouTube is safer than a 9-to-5 because you get to be your own boss. Both of them are unsafe. This really clicked for me when I found out that Lynette Atkins, a YouTuber on here with hundreds of thousands of subscribers, had her channel taken down without like any heads up. And it happened to her and some other dope creators. She tried to appeal, she tried to say, hey, what's going on? Nothing, like no recourse. They literally just said no. It was only because she'd already built up a community so that when she told folks on Instagram what happened, they rode for her in like YouTube's comment section, and then they were able to get their channels back. And obviously this was super scary for her, which makes sense. You put your whole life into this thing thinking it's gonna be the cushion you have to give you money and give you security, and then just like that it can be taken away. But if you're someone who has worked a 9-to-5 and has been laid off, that story of like the rug being ripped out from under you is not unfamiliar. I have been very blessed that I've only ever been promoted at jobs, or I have quit jobs and been like, all right, on to the next, right? I didn't have that personal experience of having a 9-to-5 prove to me in my own body and my own nervous system, like, yeah, girl, this job, whenever it wants, can let you go. And I've also never been like kicked off of a platform before. So I knew theoretically there was this term called shadow banning. And I knew that like, yeah, certain people do get kicked off of platforms, but it never happened to me, right? And I was actually talking to a friend of mine because I was telling her like, oh, I'm doing my creative stuff, but I know I'm gonna have to start paying real woman rent again. And so we gotta figure some things out. And so the 9-to-5 is the safe option. And she was like, that is not my experience of 9-to-5s, girl. And I was like, huh. So I was like, okay, if a 9-to-5 ain't safe and if YouTube ain't safe, like what am I supposed to do, right? And like all important life questions, I took it to Jim Carrey. So Jim Carrey very famously told the story about how his dad was like the funniest person he knew, and his dad wanted to be a comedian, but he had a wife and he had a baby, and he was like, the safe, smart, wise thing to do is to not follow my dreams, but to instead become an accountant, right? So he gets this job as an accountant, but guess what? He gets laid off. So either way, his family ends up struggling. And so Jim Carrey grows up in this poverty and realizes like, okay, if you can fail doing something you hate,
you might as well take a chance on doing what you love.
And then of course we know Jim Carrey went on to become this, international movie star with millions and millions of dollars. But what I think is more telling is that after he made all of this money, he had another quote, which was,
I've often said that I wished people could realize all their dreams in wealth and fame so that they could see that it's not where you're going to find your sense of completion.
And I recently made a video kind of exploring the same thing. I talked about Vanessa Lau, a YouTuber and coach who walked away for only a year. She brought her ass back, but she walked away for for a year from her business that had like $8 million in revenue or whatever. And even folks like Kelly Stamps, who I made a video talking about how inspiring her success was to me. She's made videos where she's just like, listen, I'm bored. Like, I miss working at the restaurant. I miss my time when I was like hustling in New York City. Like, I wish my managers hadn't told me to not go to school and finish my degree. Like, I had this warped idea of life and money. So here are these multiple examples of people saying the exact same thing, which is that this idea of external success that you may be striving after, it's really not all that it's cracked up to be. And the more I look at these creators, the main feeling I get is that whenever you put your fulfillment in something outside of you, you're always going to be disappointed. And I think that's for two reasons, which are really the same reason. The outside world, the external world, it's always changing. Like, that's the nature of reality, is this constant change. And the second thing is that our external reality is just a reflection of our state of consciousness. And so we are always changing in our consciousness as we have new experiences and learn new things. And so of course our external reality is always going to shift. I made a script for this video and I said, deep down, we don't actually want to be safe. Deep down, we want to grow. But I don't think it's that we don't want to be safe. I think that the binary of that is false, that it's safety or growth. I don't think that's true, but I do think just the process of growth means expanding into the unknown, and that process will bring up fear. And so at any stage in your life, when you create safety for yourself, when you create comfort for yourself, eventually it's gonna get uncomfortable, or it's gonna start pushing on you because it's against your nature to be safe and comfortable and not growing, which means that you're going to find yourself kind of coming up against these scary situations and these fearful dynamics because they're asking you to face that fear and surpass it and transcend it so you can get to the next stage in your own evolution. And that's the real reason why I'm not freaking out about the fact that I genuinely don't know where I'm gonna live this summer, is because I know I created this situation I'm in right now, where I have been living with my sister for so long. And it has been incredibly comfortable, but it's also been super triggering. Like, living here has asked me to meet a lot of the unprocessed stuff that I had from my childhood. So it's been an amazing container for me to just like process all of this stuff. And I knew that if I wanted to, I thought of this life as like a level in a video game. And I was like, if I ever want to get past this level, I have to basically process every fear that's keeping me here. And so when my sister was like,
Hey girl, I'm putting in my notice, we got 3 months.
that's when I was like, oh, I must have finally moved enough stuff where my situation is going to change permanently. Because I had that 6-month stint when I was in New York, but guess what? Right back here in Maryland, right? So the fact that it's like, no, this apartment literally will not exist anymore as an option, I know means that I have finally moved enough fear to be able to welcome in a new situation. And I think that's the main thing, right? Is that I don't think it's so much about like calling up my network and being like, hey, who's got an apartment for me? Who's got a 9-to-5 job for me? Who has a part-time consulting thing for me? Because in my experience, I literally just mind my business and those opportunities are attracted to me. So I know that I don't have to do all of that. My actual work is to be with, oh, why did I create the situation of living here? There's this fear around YouTube success and that bringing like stalkers, and somehow I'm safer if I have a roommate, you know, and ideally a roommate whose family who's not making me pay rent, right? Like, there's all these levels of other conscious and subconscious and unconscious things. And my invitation is that as they come up, instead of running away from them and being like, let's not think about that, let's apply for jobs, it's like, no, let me pause and be with where that fear lives in my body so I can actually get rid of it. And I'm making this video talking about it, one, because you may be the person with my next opportunity, and if so, feel free to send it my way. But also, I know when we just like see someone doing the thing that seems so impossible and so scary to us, like truly trusting ourselves, truly trusting God, truly trusting our intuition, when we see someone else doing that and succeeding and prospering and being like joyful and being like just in their full expression and just emanating all this beautiful light, we know, okay, if this person did it, I can do it too. And so I'm gonna keep sharing my journey with you all. I am very excited to see what happens. My prediction, and we'll see, is that that I'm just gonna get some really cool opportunity and it's gonna line up in a way that'll support me into this next phase. But it could be something else. So we're gonna find out together, which is the fun and the joy of life. And I hope you subscribe and I'll let you know what happens. Okay, that's the video. Bye.